Mara.
Thank you.
Hey, all right. Well, my name's Mark Gostkiewicz. Thanks for coming. Um, Welcome to the Art of Preserving the Harvest. I'm from Tri Gable Lea Farm. It's a little homestead farm that my wife and I run and manage and everything. We used to grow veggies at a scale to sell to families, and we used to do a CSA where people would come to our house and get a box of veggies every week. They kind of subscribe to our farm. Um, and and in doing that, it worked. It worked. It helped seed the farm and get us going. Um, and as time went on, we had kids. We got a little busy. We're both full-time teachers, so that's the day job. That's the gig. But on the side, we do a lot of this, a lot of, oh, ooh, man, do we do a lot. Growing in the greenhouse, and we got like chickens, and every now and then we got bees, and we grow mushrooms outside, and we teach these classes. And we've got an orchard. So like with our lot that we have, outside, it's only about an acre or so of like land that we can like plant on. But it's adjacent to fields. But within our little acre along the perimeter, we planted like fruit trees when one of our children was born. Now they're turning 13. So the fruit trees are turning 13. And when the other child was born about 10 years ago, we planted a whole bunch of other fruit trees. And the cool thing is that like we're at that point where the kids are climbing the trees. What's the whole point of this? It's because it's about preserving the harvest. And my God, I've got like a ton of pears right now that are about to come in. And they're just starting to like ripen up. And it's like, what do we do with all of these? And yeah, it's like we can give some away, whatever, but how do you make that last? Um, so that's what this is going to be about. We'll get to hot water bath canning. At the end, we'll talk about dehydrating. We'll talk about freezing and even using a vacuum sealer or not. But the very first thing we're going to start off with is about pickling, and about preserving things in that way. So I've got a slideshow that I linked and I put in the chat, and I've also got a set of handouts that I linked and I put in the chat. Feel free to open those up in separate tabs. Also, just like email me if you ever want. I think afterwards, Mara and I are gonna email out everybody who joined and gave us our emails ahead of time who registered. We'll email out the stuff. But again, Tri Gable Lea Farm. You can look me up. I'm gonna share my screen now. Let's see. Yeah, and there we go. So, it may have been a while or so since you've been on Zoom and everything. And just remember that what you can do with the screen is that if you want to see my face, you can always make me a little bigger on your screen. But for the most part, have it set up so you can kind of see what I'm presenting. The reason I like to, there we go. The reason I like to not share my screen, but share the presentation and share the handouts is that so that you don't feel like you have to get everything now. You can review it later. And especially with cooking, that's important. Linked within the handouts. So that's what I'm scrolling through right now. There's links to recipes, links to a brine table, links to videos. As a teacher, yeah, I teach math, but like I want to keep you learning afterwards. There's links to like actual products, like right here, mason jars. It's going to bring you right to Amazon and show you like a set of jars that you could buy. And the same thing with the fermentation lid. Da, 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 da. So as you scroll through this, I mean, look at it. It's like pages. It's pages of stuff. Okay. And the same thing, you can revisit. The presentation is a collection of images that I use to trigger memories and things to talk about. By the end, bank your questions. Feel free to put them in the chat. And then we'll get to them later and everything. But like kind of wait until we've done like a whole section, because meaning like wait until we've done the whole pickling thing to ask more about pickling questions, because we'll probably, answer some of those. So anyway, one other thing, my website is another place where you can see the other classes that we teach, and let Mara know if there's one that you want her, if you want Bloomfield to host again on a Zoom. If she gets responses about like, oh my God, and she gets like several responses about like one particular workshop, like we already did the chicken one with her. And they got it up on their YouTube to watch for free. But like if there's one of these other ones that you want, let her know. Okay, blah 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 blah. Let's get in there. Let's get into this. I'm gonna have to like remember when to like take this off the screen stop screen sharing so I can like hold up and kind of demo a few little things. But let's get there. All right, so the slideshow. Yeah, so this is me, whole list of all the classes that we do. And load it. There we go. Okay. So like I said, these are the 4 methods that we're going to be talking about today. There is more beyond this class. So I've had a lot of people actually in the past couple of weeks. They're like, "Do you do pressure canning?" I was like, no, I don't. So because I don't do it, I don't teach a class on it. That's what it comes down to. I don't do salt curing. I don't do smoking or root, I mean, root cellaring I actually have done, but I haven't built a root cellar. I've just had my own stuff in my own basement. These are things that are related, but they're not part of this. So I'm not an expert in them, but just so you know, food safety right away from the get-go. One slide to remember things. So clean hands, clean water, and equipment. And and food, of course. You want fresh food. So with this, there's going to be stories. And my friend John Wojtowicz and I, we taught at John Winthrop Middle School in Deep River. We started a school farm program there. And the first people that I taught how to preserve food was our students. We were growing food on our small, like little, we called it the farm. And we were harvesting things, and the kids, the kids wanted to learn some recipes. So we learned how to make pickles. We learned how to do all those things. Here's the thing. Kids don't have clean hands. And so we'd have them all wash their hands. And some kids may not wash all the soap off their hands. They have a soap residue. Here's the thing is that like even like a residue of stuff we don't want on. We don't, even though soap is like good, we don't want the soap in our food. So water, with the water, this is a cooking class. But if we're preserving and we're using water, we tend to not want to use city water because it's going to imbibe some of the flavors from the chemical process of that's in city water. So if you got well water, great. If you got access to spring water, or you go out and buy a distilled water, this is a time to kind of break that out when it's going in the food. Now, if we're talking about filling this up and boiling water, and we're putting cans in here, that's no problem. This can be city water, that's fine. But I mean the food that's in the jar. We don't want to use chlorinated water in here. Okay, now the equipment too is that, like, yes, we can reuse these rings and the lids, but we should be making sure that these are nice and clean and the jars are sterilized and everything before we're preserving in here. And yeah, maybe we've got like plastic bags that that we're freezing stuff in, but like, do we want to keep reusing this? Maybe if you're giving it a good clean and it's a nice sturdy bag, but for the most part, we tend to be using new stuff that's clean, ready to go. Okay. And the when in doubt, throw it out. I have had times where we've made sauerkraut and we're ready to have it. We look at it, looks great. And then we open it and go, oh my God, it smells horrible. So like, that's like one of those things of like, I want you to, I'm doing a lot of talking, so I figure I'd go back to this. Use your eyes first. Use your senses, and before it goes in your body, use the other senses. Look at your, what it is. Does it look good? Does it look gray? Did it get disgusting? Don't eat it. In that case, give it a crack open. Smell. If you're getting off flavor, I've opened up jars and had them smell like formaldehyde. Something went wrong, and it may have been maybe somebody didn't use enough salt, maybe somebody mismeasured something, maybe somebody had dirty hands, maybe the equipment was dirty, but it spoiled. And so that was a batch of sauerkraut that went like that. And I've also had things when I'm preserving, making pickles on the counter, and I make them maybe in summer, and we don't have air conditioning on for a chunk of time, and it's like fermenting too fast. And so part of this is there's an art, and sometimes when you give it a smell, it might have like this off flavor, off smell, and that could be a sign that like things didn't go as planned. um then the next step is tasting it. Yeah, a little taste. I mean, you cut off a little bit, take a little taste, see if it sits right with you, and then maybe don't have any more. Maybe it tastes good, but also see how your body does with it. If you get diarrhea from that, then you'll get diarrhea from the whole jar. So don't eat the whole jar yet. In these early days of trying recipes and everything, that's my word of caution is like the when in doubt, throw it out. Maybe something went wrong. And ask yourself what variables it could have been. Here, let's go back to screen sharing. All right. Yeah. Where'd my thing go? Oh, there it is. So, okay. Now, if you didn't know, there's a couple websites I wanted to share with you to get fresh local food. This is the point. If we were doing a live class with people sitting right in front of me, hey, where's your farmer's market? And so that I'd be asking, where's your farmer's market? What day is it? What time frame? So that people can go get fresh food. This class is
I will. Can I tell you there's a farmer's
before.
market in Bloomfield every Thursday, and it's from 3 to 6, and it's going until the end of October. And
There we go.
it's across from Town Hall on the green.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you. There you go.
yes.
Um, yeah, and so Local Harvest is a website and CT NOFA is a website that lists, and you can find, so CT NOFA is the Connecticut New England Organic, so it's the Connecticut chapter of the New England Organic Farms Association. Point is that you might have a farm that you didn't even know was 5 miles down the road, but they're doing like local deliveries, or they have something, and you could be going and getting bulk food from them. So again, that's CT Nova, Local Harvest, are just a couple websites that I was growing food. I ended up listing my farm on those sites. Freshness is the key. I've done this class, so lacto fermented and everything. One more thing before I jump in. I've done this class in January, and the thing about teaching this class in January is that the food isn't as fresh. When I've made pickles with January cucumbers, I know it's not those are not going to make good pickles. Summer pickles right now, the cucumbers that you can get right now, that's what you want to make pickles with, and that's what you want to preserve. Yes, we can do preservation with winter food, or if you have leftovers and stuff like that's where we get into freezing and maybe get into dehydrating. But when we're talking about making fermented foods, which is the start of this, the early start of pickling and everything, we want fresh food. And I've taught the classes in January, and I'm honest with people. I'm like, you know what? I'm throwing this away. And then sometimes they're like, what do you mean? And it's because I know that we're not going to get the right textures if we're using veggies that have been shipped across the country. This is what I'm saying is like right now, you can get food and Walmart now, that like at the Walmart, supermarket and everything, but that food has traveled really far. Again, if we're trying to make premium food for ourselves, we want to try and support our local farms, pay a little bit more or not, go to the farmer's market, go to your local markets and find the local grown in Connecticut, because you know that food has spent less time traveling and it's going to be more fresh. Okay, back. Um, good. I'm just going to keep trying to toggle back and forth as it makes sense. So okay, so lacto fermenting, that's our first type of pickling that we're going to talk about. And I link in the resources different books. And so some of the books may say pickling on them, some of them might say fermentation. And so there's two different types that we're going to talk about. Acids are the key either way. And as we jump into this is a slide you can revisit later. We're going to talk about lacto fermented food. So what is that? So these are your kosher dill pickles, but I'm saying kosher dill pickles, and those are cucumbers that have been pickled. The same process that we would go through to make kosher dill pickles, the ones that are in the cold case by the cold cuts and the deli meats and stuff like that, that cold case pickles. That's what we're going to talk about first. Those are different than the jar of pickles that's in the salad dressing aisle. Those pickles are vinegar-based pickles. And we will talk about both. How can you make both of those? When I say pickles, I don't want you thinking just cucumbers, because the same process that we use to do this can make pickled carrots, pickled beets, You know, pickled beets is a favorite among a lot of people. Pickled eggs, you can make your own hot sauce by pickling peppers. And man, if your name is Peter, go for it. All right. And you can make your own pickled peppers and then take the pickled peppers out of the jar, put it in a blender. That's how you make hot sauce, is by taking peppers that have been fermented, blending them, and putting it in a jar. And I've had my friends like make their own hot sauces and then bring it to a party and we're trying them out and it's like oh my god, it's so cool. Anyway, salt. As we talk about making kosher dill pickles, I'm going to use this side for kosher dill versus our salad dressing pickles. Our kosher dill pickles, they're going to need either kosher salt or pickling salt that you see on the screen. Now, not iodized salt. So that one's a no-no because what we're going to be doing is we're going to try to encourage the growth of lactobacillus bacteria. Okay. The same type of bacteria that's like in yogurt, one of the ones that's in yogurt that gives it its lactic acid and makes Greek yogurt tart is the same one that releases lactic acid in the kosher dill pickles and makes them sour. And you know what the difference between half sours, kosher dills, and kosher dills that are full sour? Well, they just didn't ferment it as long, and half sours are still kind of halfway cucumbery and half sour. Okay, anyway, so I love making pickles. I do a whole nother class that's just we go through all the recipes of like making fermented foods. And so this is just a little primer that you get from this class. So okay, one thing that I refer to is a brine chart. Now, what looking through this and everything, it's like what salt would we be using for this? We'd probably be using a pickling salt. The difference between pickling salt and kosher salt is grain size. Kosher salt can be nice if you're massaging the salt into the food, and because the grain size can cut into the food and release moisture, blah 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 blah. Pickling salt is great for making brines because it's a very fine grained and it dissolves easily in a jar of water. So when I'm making things, I'm like, well, you know what? I got a few cumbers. I'm gonna make 1 quart of brine. And so I refer to this chart and it's like, well, which one do I follow? First, find a recipe first. This is for advanced folks who have made a few batches of pickles. First, follow a recipe like one that I linked in the resources for making kosher dill pickles. Make that recipe, and then this is for once you get it figured out, and you're like, oh, all I need to do is make brine and add that to the food, and then pay attention to a few details. You can come back to this. Why might you use one that has a higher percentage of salt versus a lower percentage of salt? Well, the higher percentage of salt is going to guarantee that things kind of kick off right away and start to ferment a little bit faster. However, it's going to result in something that does taste saltier. That's why you might use a lower percentage of salt. If you're somebody who's watching your salt intake, guarantee you're gonna want to go with that one. Things might chug along a little slower though, and a little slower means these cucumber the kosher dill pickles, once you start the recipe, you tend to have them ferment for about 5 to 7 days. Well, the 5 days might be with this concentrated brine, while the less concentrated brine, the 3.5%, might be one that might take 7 days to go. But room temperature also factors in this. Okay, anyway. So we got a bazillion vessels that we could use. Here's the thing is that like we don't need to break out like the little these airlocks for like brewing. This is a setup I use for making mead, and I needed that for that. We don't, I am suggesting that you're using like get a set of these quart size wide mouth jars. That's what you're going to see me hold up over and over and over. Now, yeah, if you're making jams and jellies, you'll probably want to portion it out into smaller portions. Maybe so you can give out some as gifts, but this is your go-to, this quart size jar. Can you make a gallon size thing of pickles? Well, yeah, but you got to have a lot of veggies to fill that jar. And sometimes maybe that's what you do. You got your recipes down, you scale it up to a gallon, you have that whole thing ferment. Then once it's all ready and fermented, you put it in the fridge to stop the fermentation. And then you got time to Well, you don't want that whole thing in in your fridge. So you then portion it out into smaller jars. And then maybe you have a second fridge, or you got a different area of your fridge that's in the back. You let those, but the one up front is the one that you're eating. Okay, anyway. So we got lots of different types of lids. We're using the standard wide mouth lid for the most part, or swapping it once it goes in the fridge. I like to put on these little plastic lids. Now, what's in my pantry for spices is this little collection of things. Typically, now I mean I'm honest now. Pickling spices become my go-to. Instead of following a recipe and it says add coriander and add mustard seeds and add dill and add some peppercorn, they're all in here. Pickling spice, it's just got all of it in there. So like you just take a tablespoon, whoop, in there, instead of 1 teaspoon of this and 1 teaspoon of that and pickling spices all around. It's got a lot of stuff, and it's got bay leaves in it and a little bit of citrus peel. It's got, what it does is it gives you a complex set of flavors to mellow out. Here's the thing, you don't need any of this, really. You can make pickles that are unseasoned. All right. So it's just brine and cucumbers, done. And you will make pickles. But by adding some spices, it's going to give it more complex flavors. Now you're going to see my recipes, my pictures later on. I add some other veggies in with my pickles. So, but this is what's in my pantry. That extra crunch is also in my pantry because sometimes I want to make sure that the texture preserves right. And what is extra crunch? This thing, it's just calcium chloride. Where do you find it? In the grocery store. Like if I go to Walmart, or if I go to, I'm going to mention Walmart because they're kind of everywhere. But if I go to Walmart or Tractor Supply, another place that's everywhere, there's a section for canning. And that section for canning is going to have some of these things. It may not say extra crunch on it, but it's going to be calcium chloride. And what's the purpose of it? You'll see it as an ingredient sometimes on the salad dressing pickles, in that aisle, because it says preserves freshness. I mean, as a kid, I'd read the ingredients, calcium chloride preserves freshness. Like, why is that there? It's because it does. It firms up the cell walls. We're going to see how there's some natural things that we could also use. I'm doing a lot of talking, but that's my job. All right, let's jump in. All right. Now I'm going to skip through this. The pictures aren't that great, but making sauerkraut is one of those things where very little ingredients, you're chopping it up and you're massaging into it that kosher salt. Boom, 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 boom. Here's the thing is that the process for that, sorry, skipping through. I do lots of different talks, so I kind of bank lots of pictures in here of things that we could use in the discussion. And really what I want to get to is this one right here. Okay, this is the recipe for kosher dill pickles. All right, so you've got some cucumbers. All right, and do they have to be pickling cucumbers? No, but pickling cucumbers, they're the right size already. They're grown to be short and stubby, and so that you're kind of cutting off like the little blossom end of it, shoving it in the jar. And we've got salt. We've got some. Now I had some what is it, peppercorns, and some what is that, mustard seeds measured out, but really the pickling spice is where it's at, and some garlic. Here's another one where we've got like a sprig of dill. This is everything that kind of I'm trying to shove in one jar. So it's probably like 3-4 cucumbers, a jalapeno, some garlic that gets smashed, and maybe not this half of an onion, but a quarter of an onion. Here's the thing, you get pickled onions from this too. So you pull that onion out of the jar and it's a pickled onion. You slice that up and you put it in with your tacos, and oh my God. And you take this jalapeno. Now it's a pickled jalapeno. You slice that up, you put it in with your egg salad sandwiches, or you put it again, amazing stuff. And you get pickled garlic from this. So what's the process? Well, just you're kind of, I cut the jalapenos in half. I leave the seeds and everything in it, or you can take them out. I take the garlic, I smash it, I cut a quarter of that. Now look at this. I got a grape leaf here. Why do I got a grape leaf? Okay, there's 3 leaves. Again, all this is like in the handouts. 3 leaves that you could use that substitute, and they take the place of this calcium chloride because they have high tannins in them. So grape leaves, oak leaves, and raspberry leaves. Now, there are other leaves in the world. These are just the 3 that I know. I've had people, they're like, could you do fig leaves? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you probably could. But grape leaves that's a common one because the grape leaves are using what is it, the Greek the little wraps or roll-ups, I think dolmas or whatever is what they're called. Anyway, but you could make a whole jar of pickled grape leaves with the same process that we do for cucumbers. Why do we toss a grape leaf in the jar with the pickles that we're going to make the cucumbers? It's because it preserves texture. And so it's a natural way of firming up the walls.
Mark, I
And
just want to stop you for 1 minute.
yeah,
One of the participants doesn't see the handout in the chat.
that's a link to it. So how about maybe towards the end we pop it in. So earlier in the chat, you might have to go earlier in the chat to
Okay.
see those.
Okay.
Yeah. Here, copy, paste. I'll put one again, and I think this is the other link. No. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at them
Thanks,
right now.
Mark.
So
Thank you.
there you go. Boom, boom.
Thank you.
Hopefully that might have been two of the same darn thing. So, all right. I'm not quite sure if those are it might be posting the same. I might be highlighting, copying, and pasting the same link by accident.
Yeah,
But
let us know, Marie.
okay. Well, hopefully, hopefully those are working. But okay,
Okay, thanks.
hopping back in. All right, so making pickles. Really, all right. You choose how you want to slice these up. I like to do spears or halves. All right, but you can do chips and stuff like that. And honestly, what did I just do? I shoved them in there. I shoved them in there so tight that if I held the jar upside down, nothing would fall out. Okay. And then I take that another jar of salt water, the brine, pour it over. And I make sure that everything is underneath that brine. Now, here's the cool part is that is that when the veggies are underneath the brine, even though we wash them, there's bacteria on our hands, there's bacteria everywhere. This is not a clean broom. There's bacteria that starts to survive in that saltwater environment. But bad bacteria, like the kind that cause botulism, in that saltwater environment, they die. All right. And the good bacteria, now there's multiple bacteria that do survive in salt water in that brine, but one of them is lactobacillus. That one starts to eat some of the sugars in the cucumber. And yeah, cucumbers have small amounts of sugars in them, and some of the sugars in the garlic and in the peppers. And what do? Now, remember, I taught middle school. They start to fart out carbon dioxide, and they start to produce lactic acid. And that lactic acid environment makes it even more hospitable for them. They can survive in an acidic environment. Okay. And so the population builds up. And after those pickles are sitting, the cucumbers in the salt water sit on my counter. There's a little bit of airspace, so that pressure can build up. And I just take this top and go finger tight on this. So here, and that's what they look like. I'm just going to stop the share so that I can, there we go. And okay, so lost the zoom, but here we go. Did it? So coming back to this. So we got our cucumbers in here. We got our salt water up to the top, but not all up to the top. There's a little bit of air in there. We've got this on finger tight. And that is, we're not cranking down on this, just finger tight so no new air gets in. We let this sit on the counter in a cool, dark place. Okay. And we let it sit in the counter so that bacteria, the bacteria that's in there, the good stuff, starts to survive. And next day we pick this up and we open it and it goes like a little soda bottles hissing at you. It's because there's carbon dioxide in there. And then every day we burp this a couple times. And what will end up happening is if the bacteria stop to thrive in here, we'll go to burp it and like it's not going to hiss anymore. They're not really like producing anymore. That's a sign that your pickles might have also like over fermented and they're done. Before that, there's going to be a time where again, follow a recipe. Typically, it's about 5 days or so where I go, I open it up and I'm like, you know what? It's time for a little taste test. I do the look, I do the smell. Okay, smells like pickles. And I pop it open. I take a fork. I'm not sticking my hand. Take a fork in there and a little knife, and I cut a little piece of cucumber off. I eat it and I taste it, and it's like, does it taste like a kosher dill? And it does. Okay. Now, if there are off flavors, off smells, again, That's where we toss things and we try again. Now, what could go wrong with this? Oh, okay. So by the way, once you're like, oh, I like the flavor, take this, put it in the refrigerator, and that significantly slows down the bacterial growth. This is now those cucumbers, those pickles are now good in the fridge. For how long? Could you keep them in the fridge for a year? Yeah, but no. What's going to happen in a year is that they're going to get mushy. Oh, they'll still smell like kosher dills and everything, but they'll be mushy. So think of a month or two. You kind of want to eat these within a month or two. After that, they're going to stop having firm. They're not going to be as firm. They're going to start turning into mushy pickles. Maybe make relish on them at that point because it's mushy anyway. That's a good use of it. And then you could keep it longer. Okay, now, could you take these? I had some people say, could you take these and put them in a hot water bath method and make them shelf stable? You actually could. You could process these and the top would go down. You get a little vacuum seal. We'll talk about that. And but if you did that, you'd be killing all the beneficial gut bacteria that are in it in that process. One of the big reasons why people like to make fermented foods like this is because of those good colonies of bacteria that go and help our microbiome and everything. All right, so now let's go back. We're gonna like kind of finish up these types of pickles, jump into the next type of pickles, the vinegar-based pickles before we talk about canning. Okay. So the process was really, again, follow a recipe, but it's really veggies in a jar with salt water and add time and they ferment. Okay, so here's again, finished pictures. With what you know now, you can really do a lot of these recipes. And that would be pickled carrots. Look at that with a little bit of ginger and garlic and some radishes in there. Make your own pickled beets, pickled eggs. So you hard boil the eggs, and you add peppers in there because the peppers bring the bacteria. Because if you're boiling those eggs, they're going to be sterile. But the little maybe sprig of dill and a couple jalapenos in with those pickled eggs. Oh my God. They bring a lot to the party. They also bring a lot of flavor. And that's one of my favorite things to make is what is it? It's a pickled egg salad sandwich, but with the pickled jalapenos in there. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right, anyway. There's other things, even corned beef. You can look up how to make corned beef. Now, corned beef is one of those that it looks a little scary. It's chugging along. These are examples of stuff that we do in like a class that's all about this. We even make kimchi. That's a definitely like a crowd pleaser where you're chopping things up so that you can pick them up with chopsticks and have that on the side. Now, what you'll see sometimes here is you'll see these lids. It's like, what is that lid? That lid is you take the metal one off and you put like one of these little lids on. It's like a one-way little nipple valve. And my God, you say nipples around middle schoolers and you lost them. But anyway, that's what it is. It's a little nipple valve. And why would you put that on this? Why do I have those with that little valve on it versus these have the flat tops? Well, the flat top ones are ones that every time I burp them, they were fine. They hissed. Okay. Now these other ones, this is like let's see, that's pickle. That's like, it's a sauerkraut of some sort. These are ones that the pressure built up so much. It's like a soda bottle. You take a soda bottle, you shake it and you open it up. And if you let it open up, you're left with half a bottle of soda. Similar thing happens. I'm not saying shake up the bottles, but I'm saying when you go to burp your baby, your little jar baby, once in the morning, once in the evening, if you go to burp it and liquid starts spurting out of it, you're losing your brine. What happens with that is that the food now gets exposed to the air and you get nasty bacteria. It's no longer submerged in the salt water. So why might we use a lid like this? So that excess carbon dioxide can get out without letting too much stuff in. And there's not a lot of airflow. All right, so a couple recipes in here. All right. Now this recipe. So maybe you can see it on your screen, but I'll read out loud for you. This is now my transition slide. When you are reading a recipe and you're reading a recipe, it's about pickling or whatever. It doesn't say fermentation on the book. It says pickles or preserving your harvest or whatever it is. You're online right here, 3 cups of vinegar. That is not a kosher dill pickle. All right. Doesn't say kosher dill pickle up here. Just says dill pickles. All right. Because Now we're talking about shelf stable, salad dressing aisle, pickles. These are the ones that can be stored at room temperature that you can take that jar and put in a hot water bath and have that jar sealed at room temperature and hanging out in your basement, in your pantry for a year, or so. Okay. And so when you look at recipes like this one says makes about, oh my God, 6 quarts. No, six, what's it? Pints, 1 pint, wide mouth jar. So let's see. So it's like 3 quarts. I think that's the math on it. My God, I'm a math teacher, but I do forget. Let's see. Yeah, pint. There's a pint. There's a quart. Two of them in there. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, once you see vinegar in a recipe, now we're not using lactic acid to create the acidity to pickle them. We're using the vinegar's acid. And so what do we, just gonna pop up. You're gonna see that I do like this book. It's linked in there. It's the all new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving. It's like I got a lot of books that I've used for recipes. The ones that have this green in here, you're going to see that in my presentation because this book kind of has all the preserving methods in it, and it is my go-to. Um, they did a great job putting everything together. Now, refrigerator pickles. This is okay on the stove top. You're heating up. You're heating up your vinegar because if you follow this recipe back here, it says combine the vinegar and the water and the ingredients in a stainless steel enamel pan so you don't have vinegar reacting with aluminum or anything like that. Bring it to a boil. Now you're going to take boiling stuff and ladle it over cucumbers. We don't cook cucumbers, but that's going to start to par cook the cucumbers. That's where you're going to probably add your calcium chloride. Now, when I look at this, I don't see calcium chloride in the list. But what? No, look at the bottom. Ball pickle crisp. That's what it is. Ball pickle crisp is calcium chloride, and this one's called extra crunch. It's calcium chloride. All right, but they're using their a specific name brand. Um, they're adding that to this because you're taking stovetop just off the boil vinegar mixture and you're pouring it over those cucumbers to pickle them. But here's what I love about this is that you don't have to make kosher dills. You can pickle and change the spice profile. Okay, so you want these Latin American, Mexican style ones. Well, you're going to use lime juice. So here's the thing. You're still using vinegar. You're going to follow a recipe that's up here. Still uses vinegar as the base and still uses, can still use cucumbers, but no. You could do pickled peppers, carrots. Look at this. Onions. Take even a mix of these veggies and you're going to have them in this white wine or apple cider vinegar, and that's going to complement flavor-wise with these seasonings. That's what I was saying before, is that just because you have something pickling in a jar doesn't mean that it has to be a kosher dill. You change up the seasonings and you've changed up like the ethnicity of this or the culture that these pickles are kind of what is it? Originate with, because pickling isn't something that's just done in like one culture. It's done around the world with the spices of that culture. So yeah, this is a Szechuan one, but look at it. It's got ginger, it's got 5 spice, it's got some red chili, crushed pepper powder. We got cloves and onions in there. Okay, and versus Mediterranean one, look out, they break out the balsamic vinegar. Okay. Again, like what I want you to see is that, again, this is a cooking class. It's to give you ideas. And I imagine you're going to leave this class and you're going to be like, I wish you didn't talk about pickles as much. And everything after this you really care about. Or you're going to be like, oh my God, I loved all the pickling talk. I want to make a mix of pickled veggies. And I'm going to try we have some carrots. We have some cherry tomatoes. We have some green beans. I'm going to try to make a little spicy mix for myself. Okay. Anyway, bop. Oh, this is just an example of like, again, chopped up multiple things in a jar. Okay, canning. So now we move into the hot water bath method. So we've got, I know I've done a lot of talking. We're halfway through the class, but the first part kind of gets us talking about things. All right, so the hot water bath method, this is for acidic foods only, meaning we are not going to be preserving beef stew or something like that in a jar and then having that shelf stable. Well, it's like, how does Dinty Moore do it? Well, they're putting it in a metal can. They're pressure canning it. And that's a whole nother process. The hot water bath method is one that just do. Okay. So where I go to some props quick. The hot water bath method is one where we are using this little seal here. It's the nice clean top. And we've got our food in here, and we're going to fill it up to a certain amount. We're going to leave what's called some head space here. So in a recipe, if you see head space, they're talking about how much air should you, how high should you fill it up? Typically, the smaller the jar, the less head space you need, and the larger jar, the more head space you need. All right. So if we're doing a big old half-gallon jar like this, look at that. Big difference there. This one might need an inch of head space, and this one might need only a quarter inch of headspace. It means you fill it right up. All right. Now they do sell little kits for canning. Like this is one that I bought, and I was like, all right, it's got some tools. Honestly, I bought it for the funnel because I got like 4 of these little funnels. They fit in these largemouth jars, and oh my God, it doesn't seem like it would make a big difference, but that helps you fill the jar so much more. Helps it when you're ladling stuff in that you're not getting anything on here and that you already know the lid is clear. And you know what? That little funnel works on the tiniest little jar too, as you're filling that one up. So one funnel for them all. But anyway, I bought this little kit, and it also had this tool in here. And this tool is for picking up hot jars out of that hot pot, putting them on the counter or lowering them down carefully. Now, because if you got like a lobster pot, you can do canning in your big old soup pot, lobster pot, whatever. So you could just buy like a little kit with this. Now, this little kit also comes with this little tool. I was like, what does this little tool do? Well, this is in quarter-inch increments. So you can go, oh, quarter inch of head space. Yep, I filled it high enough. No, oh no, I gotta add a little. Oh man, I filled it too high. All right, half inch, 3/4, 1 full inch. You can ballpark it for the most part, but for those, I'm not saying you got to measure this like crazy, but you do have to be close. You do got to be close. If it says a quarter inch and you're leaving like an inch of airspace, well, that's only like half filled on this thing. And okay, so why the whole thing with headspace? When you've got this lid on, when this goes into that boiling water bath, if I didn't have this ring on, the lid would fall off like that. Now, we don't want the lid to fall off, so we use this little ring to hold that lid on. But when the process is done, a little vacuum seal is going to be created, and we'll be able to take this off, hold the jar upside down, even give a shake, and that ain't coming off. You're going to have to take a butter knife and pry that off the first time you open it, and it's going to go, it's going to open up like a sealed can. Okay, so now that ring is on there, and we don't want to cramp down tight because we could damage that little rubber seal. We just want to go finger tight. Okay, so not palm tight, just as tight as your fingers will go, and that's fine enough. Okay. Um, okay. So now let's talk about this little thing. And they're like, oh yeah, the other end is to get rid of your air bubbles, which you do want to get rid of, but like a butter knife will do the same thing. Okay, so those are some things that you'll see in that are specific to canning. You had that jar thing, you had the funnel. All right, again, favorite one's the funnel. Buy a bunch of those. You'll find that you're using them for other things. I use this to fill my kids like snack bags. All right, so we buy a big old thing of goldfish, and I'm like, here, guys, fill up some snack cups. All right, fill up some snack cups and then take those and put them in the plastic bags. So they put this in the plastic bag, fill it up. You know what? And as we get to freezing and everything, yeah, I use this when I'm filling freezer bags. Why? Why? We didn't even talk about freezing yet, but because I don't want moisture to get in this seal. Because what if I zip it and there's moisture in that seal, it's gonna pop the seal and air is gonna get in. All right, so we'll get there. We'll get to freezing. But I'm just saying how this is useful in other cases. Now, I got this jar. This not jar. This pot. Now, I didn't. I went a long time before I bought this one, and really, the reason that I ended up getting this was because I bought one of these pots to use with my students because we didn't have a pot for the kitchen at the school. So I was like, oh, well, all right. We went out, we bought it, and I was like, oh my God, this little basket's amazing. And it's like, here's the other thing. So this is like, I think it's like 30 bucks all day long at Tractor Supply. I've also linked another one of these. So it's it's a thin walled pot. It's not like your copper bottom French made pot. All right, so it's cheap. It's made for boiling water. You're only going to use it a few times for that. So you don't have to spend a lot on it. Now here, you see how there's this line here? That line right there helps you that if you fill it up to there and then you got a whole bunch of small jam jars and you load them in the basket and put it in, they're all going to end up getting the water's going to raise to cover all those lids and they'll all be underneath the water. What's this line for? Well, if you take and put 6 of these jars in, six, I think it's about 6, maybe 8 of these jars in, and you lower the basket down into the water rises and goes over the tops of these without going out of the pot. Now, I've eyeballed it before and I'm putting 1 jar in at a time, 1 jar in at a time in my other pot and going, oh man, I can't put the last one in. It's going to go over. I've even gone, oh, it'll fit. And I put it in, the water flows over and puts my burner out. Um, 30, $35, it's worth it if you're going to be doing a good chunk of canning. Again, I think as you leave here, you're like, oh, I don't have that yet. I don't know if I'm going to get into canning. Don't get it. Dehydrating. Oh, well, I think I might want to try that. I'll get a dehydrate, in the vacuum sealer. We've got an extra, freezer in the basement. I think we're going to do more freezing and stuff like that. You're going to leave this class not necessarily doing everything, but getting the right tools for the job. All right, let's go back to the slides. So for canning, all right, we're just going to quickly go over it's not rocket science. We're going to hear a little bit of the vocab that goes along with canning. And as your teacher, remember I'm a teacher, vocab can be important. And what we're doing is looking to accelerate stuff so that when you look at a recipe, you know what you're getting into. So there we go. There's a top-down view of the basket, and lowering stuff. I wouldn't be lowering all this stuff in, but this is just some of the stuff that can come with a kit. A little jar opener. Yeah, that might be handy. A spatula. Okay, anyway. Yeah. So that's what you want it to look like. When you put the jars in, even if you should be preheating the jars, and we'll get there. When you lower them in, they're going to cool down that boiling water to the point where it's not boiling anymore. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that recipes are going to say to process it for a certain amount of time in that boiling water. The timer doesn't start until you see boiling again. So if it says process for 20 minutes and you just put the jam jars in and now it's not boiling anymore, you got to wait for the boil to return. Kick it up on high, get that boil to return, and start your timer, go watch Netflix and come back over when it's done. Okay. So all right, other little things okay. Things that are in my pantry for canning. Now, citric acid is now one of them. And my God, you're gonna see that I don't know how I lived without this. I use citric acid all the time. Now, if you were doing a show with me in person, I'd be passing this around. You'd be doing a little bit of citric acid with me. Okay, it's the only kind of acid that we can do together. All right. So this tastes like it's sour because this is the stuff that makes Sour Patch Kids sour. That plus sugar, that's what you're getting when you get Sour Patch Kids and a flavor. So citric acid is what's doing it. Why do we use this? It's because in canning, acids are important. And maybe the recipe you're following says to add lemon juice. All right, that's acids. Maybe the recipe you're following says to add vinegar. Maybe the recipe you're following says doesn't have to add anything, but maybe you're worried it doesn't have enough acid in it or something like that. This is where you can add it. Or you can substitute the citric acid. It's just a powder, by the way, just like the powder on the outside of Sour Patch Kids. And you'll see how I also use this in freezing and dehydrating. That's what I mean. I sprinkle it on and everything. You can use this instead of lemon juice because let's say you are going to can and make some cans of stuff, and maybe it's a pie filling. And some pie fillings, you're like, yeah, lemon would be good. And maybe some pie fillings, you're like, you know what? No, I don't want the lemon in there. I just want it to be just peaches. Well, okay, there you go. Use citric acid to kick up the acidity instead of lemon juice. Kick up the acidity. It also prevents oxidation and browning and all that jazz when you do open the jar. All right, now we also might be using pectin. Okay, so citric acid in this thing that says fresh fruit, fresh produce, those are both citric acid, by the way. when you look at this. The fruit pectin. So pectin is one of those things in jams and jellies that firms it up. Um, One time I had these wild cherries that were growing across the street. I hiked out there with my ladder. I was picking up cherries off the tree, the choke cherries off the tree, got them back, and I was like, man, what do I do with these? They taste great. Um, and so fruit naturally has pectin in it. And I wagered that that natural fruit, so fresh, and some of them even on the green side, would have high amounts of pectin in it. They should. But when I made a jam out of it. So, I boiled them, and then I got them through a strainer to get all the pits and the skins out. And I got that jam juice, and I started to jar it, and I processed it and everything. It didn't set up. And what happened was I had cherry syrup, which, you know what, made for some great adult drinks, and an amazing topper, a drizzle on top of pancakes and waffles. So it still didn't go to waste, but it didn't turn into something that we could spread on toast easily. So pectin is something that I should have added to that recipe, but I'm actually kind of glad I didn't because, happy accidents. Now, if a recipe is calling for sugar, you're not breaking out this. You're breaking out regular sugar. Why? Because raw honey is not pasteurized. And yes, honey is a preservative. If you are taking something and submerging it in honey, honey will preserve it. The sugar content in that honey will preserve it. But here's the thing. You're not taking a whole jar of honey and canning it. You would be taking like tablespoons or maybe a cup of honey and putting it into a jam recipe and then mixing up, you're diluting the honey. It's losing its preservative values when you do that. And since it's raw honey, there's a chance for that to be a vector for botulism. There's a reason why pregnant women and young children shouldn't eat raw honey. It's because it increases their risk of getting botulism and everything like that. And the same thing goes with recipes. Now, down the road, you experiment. That's your own thing. But me as the teacher, I don't want to get sued. Follow recipes. And if a recipe calls for raw honey and it's a canning recipe, you should question it. Okay. Anyway, what do we got? Okay. General process in pictures. Yes, you fill your jars, you create the right amount of headspace. You also make sure that you got any air bubbles out. All right, so you're cooking everything. You preheated your jars, by the way, and you preheated your lids. I love to use my dishwasher. When I didn't have a dishwasher, I just freshly washed everything in hot soapy water, rinsed it all off. And this can also be used to preheat your jars and lids. Use that basket, put them in, lower them down. So lids off the jar, so water and everything can get into the jar, and preheat the glass. Preheating the glass, when you then put this in, it reduces the chance that the glass, if it had like a little ding on it or whatever, could shatter and break. If it shatters and breaks in there, you got broken glass in a whole canning thing. And like, yeah, it's probably not going to affect the other cans, but now what are you going to do? You got broken glass. Anyway, clean the rims so that you get a good seal. Put on that top finger tight. You're lowering them down. Use that basket, and then you're processing it for a certain amount of time. Then you're taking them out again. That basket, pull them out with that basket. Let it rest. It rests right on the top, and then you're taking them out with your pot holders one by one, setting them on the counter. Now, old timey thing was to have them sitting upside down. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Okay, so you should have a proper vacuum seal with them sitting, up like this, and you'll hear the little pings. It's so much more satisfying than that. You'll be watching your TV show and hear ping, oh, ping, and count them off. You're like, oh, I just did 8 jars, and you're 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're every time that's happening, it's because the air in here heated up and it pushed air out. This was finger tight, it pushed air from that headspace out, not liquid out, air out. And then when you pulled it out of that boiling water, it condensed and cooled, and now it's sucking down that top and vacuum sealing it. Okay, so those pop down on their own. You've got in label what you put so that you know how long it is. And yeah, this is a slide. You can revisit it. These are all bad things that can happen to jars. Throw them out if you're seeing that. Couple recipes here. And okay, so vocab that goes along with canning. Okay. So, again, like, dude, you see the green on the page? Came from this book again. I love it. I pulled specific pages out because this snippet of this page had all the vocab that I wanted to hit on that might be new to you. So, what is raw pack and hot pack? Okay, so for peaches, so this is, taking peaches, you're going to wash them, you're going to peel them, you're going to pit them. Oh, you're going to pit them and get them ready, which means you probably have peach halves at this point. Okay. And now you can raw pack them in the jars, meaning, you take the jars and you put the peaches in, and then you fill it up with a light or a medium syrup. Now, what is that? That's a recipe that's in the book later on. You find that recipe for a light syrup. You Google it, it's all about the same. And all it is, a light syrup versus a medium one, is that it's a light syrup has less sugar in it, more water. It's a sugar to water ratio. Okay. So like a light syrup might be 1 part sugar I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it might be 5 parts water, while medium one might be 1 part to 3 parts, and a heavy one might be 1 to 1, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water. So in the beekeeping world, you learn, you know what like your sugars are. You're like, oh, I'm feeding 1 to 1. Well, I'm feeding 2 to 1. Da, 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 da. All right, anyway. Um Now, raw pack means you're putting them in here, you're leaving the headspace, filling it up with syrup, and that syrup's gonna help create the vacuum and everything. Hot pack means on the stovetop, you're getting your syrup heated and you're putting all the peaches in that pot, in a separate pot to heat it up, and then you're ladling those hot, heated up peaches with your little funnel into your jar. All right, you get in your headspace. Now you've par cooked those peaches. Um, so when it comes over here, it's like pros and cons and everything. It's like the processing time. So the raw pack ones, you can see right here, you process those 30 minutes for a quart jar, while 25 minutes for a quart jar for the hot pack ones, because they've kind of been preheated. Okay, let's move on. So canning, so other fruits, let's see, hot pack, raw pack. I'm gonna skip that to this. Okay, tomatoes are a common one. So um can you can other things besides uh besides tomatoes and besides fruits? Well, yeah, all of the pickles that we were talking about before, because they were probably made with a vinegar base. Those are acidic enough that you can process them. You just have to look up what the processing time would be. Um, Here's what I want you to notice with canned tomatoes. This is why there are stories of people getting botulism, and it's like, getting, I keep using that phrase, but they're getting food poisoning from canning at home, and it's because they may not be processing things long enough. Tomatoes packed in their own juice, all right, needs 1 hour and 25 minutes to be under that boiling water. That's a long time. Um, all right, looking at this one says 45 minutes. Okay. And this one over here, hot packed over here, the processing time, let's see, again about 45 minutes. Okay. So again, like 45 minutes, that's a long time. That could be 2 episodes of something, or one big long episode, or half a movie. Well, you know what I mean? It's a long time. You're setting a timer for this. Um, it's when people are kind of eyeballing, getting sidetracked, forgetting to set the timer, and they're like, yeah, it's probably been long enough, and they pull it off, and then they put it at a room temperature shelf, and they think it's good, and then the food spoils. Okay, why can tomatoes be canned? While like you can't can beans unless they're pickled beans. Why can we can tomatoes and these aren't pickled? It's because tomatoes are a fruit and they're high in acids. All right, that's why they're an acidic food. Okay. Um, okay, so this is like some salsa recipes. Okay, we're gonna jump into that. Let's see. We're gonna jump into freezing. Gonna take a little water break. Oh, okay. Let's see. Any other things with the canning? I'm looking at my props around here. All right. All right. Freezing. Yeah. Let's escape out of this and stop the share. Just my stupid face. All right. So Instead of jumping in the slides, what I'm going to do is just going to talk about a few things as props, then jump into the freezing thing and complete the conversation about stuff. So, all right, freezing. Yeah, you got freezer bags. What's the difference between a freezer bag and like a regular old, it's not just the color that these are blue and the regular ones are red. Okay. A freezer bag it tends to have a double zipper at the top. Well, it's like some other ones, they got a double zipper. Why? What makes this special? It's a thicker plastic. Okay. I'm I'm sure like so I know I've thrown a lot of frozen food. Food that I messed up in freezing and then it got freezer burnt, food that went mushy from my garden and then, after I froze it because I didn't pay attention to it. Um Food that I forgot the label in. I'm like looking at it, I'm like, what the heck is this? And and food that the bags rubbed up against each other and they opened and cut each other open because I didn't use the right bags. All right, so a lot of I don't like food waste. All right. And freezing should be a relatively easy thing. These bags tend to be thicker. That way, when you're freezing stuff in here, you want to make sure not to completely pack the bag completely full. So if I was going to put soup in here, which that's a risky thing, but if I was going to put soup in here, I wouldn't want to fill it all the way to the top because soup, water expands. And even if I fill this all the way to the top, then freeze it maxed out, it's going to pop the bag. You're going to have a big old mess. Oh, no, 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 no. Could you freeze soup in glass jars? Yeah, yeah, you can. Again, we're gonna follow your finger tight rule. All right, as you're freezing things, you're definitely stay away from the top. Um, just be careful because glass can bust. If especially you've got this cranked down, you didn't fill it up enough. I'd say stick with 3/4 full. Give it plenty, even maybe even a little less than that. Glass is tricky to freeze in because there's risks of breaking that glass. Plastic, it's pretty safe. All right, to freeze in it. These little takeout containers, save them, use them. This is what you want to freeze your liquids in. All right, so liquids and stuff like this, that works. Yeah, you can get your vacuum sealer bag and everything. I still personally prefer to freeze liquids in this because it's just more, it's tedious to fill this with liquid and put it in the vacuum sealer and everything. Now, vacuum sealers come with attachments that you can also attach to these, put over the tops of these, and it forms the vacuum seal for you without you having to do this method. Now, I haven't done that. I've only heard about it from other people who've taken my class. They're like, oh my God, you got to try it. I'm like, so I'm not going to teach how to do that, but I've heard that that's a thing. Okay. Anyway, bags. Bags. They're made out of a thicker wall so that as these rub against each other, they're not going to tear each other. You got it. So, other things with this. So we talked about like liquid in the seal. Okay, so it's worth vacuum sealer. All right, I'm loving this thing. All right, so you open it up. My God, just watch an infomercial. Why are you watching me? I think my point is that like I'm sold. I'm sold. The infomercials are right. This one's a food saver brand. I did buy one on Temu and I tried it. It's garbage. I wasted money on that thing. I found this one. So this is a model that's like 10 years old, but I found it on eBay for like 35 bucks. It works great. It works great. It's like the person who used it hardly ever used it. Fine, you can get these things used. The price tag on a vacuum sealer, they do vary, but your typical good one's going to be about $100 brand new to 150 or 200 or more. My God, this one does have a little. I like this one because it's like, I pull out the bags come in rolls. Do you have to buy the Food Saver brand bag? No, no. Really, what you're looking for is the right width that fits in your machine. So whatever machine you got, mine fits 11-inch rolls. So I can buy 11-inch or smaller, width rolls. You're cutting them to length. And then you seal one side. It really is so super. Watch an infomercial. It's super simple to seal one end, then put your food in, and then feed it into the machine and hold it and hit the button. And it sucks the air and then seals it. Mine is one where it has a vacuum and seal button at the same time, meaning once it hits a certain PSI and it's like, oh, I've sucked out all the air, it automatically starts to seal. Most of the ones that I've seen that are in my price range have the two buttons of like vacuum and seal separately, but not the one. Mine has three. Blah 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 blah. Let's jump into the slideshow. With freezing, like air is your enemy. You really want to get the air out of stuff. Slide, share, boom, boom, boom. There we go. Isn't it crazy? I taught all day at school. Now I'm doing this. It's like I'm gonna sleep well tonight. All right, so all right. So just hey, when I'm thinking of freezing, I'm thinking of liquids. I'm not gonna dehydrate this stuff. I'm not gonna try to pickle this stuff. I'm thinking meals, and I'm saving my food this way. So I'm maybe roasting up a whole bunch of tomatoes from my garden or the farmer's market or whatever, and roasting really brings out flavors. Then you bank that in the freezer and you've got roasted, pre-cooked stuff ready to go. All right. I'm also thinking of my orchard and man, freezing this stuff. What I have learned is that banking this stuff and then making pies with it later, super easy in the freezer. All right. Same thing with mushrooms. Mushrooms, I am dehydrating them first, then freezing them. So those come back in the dehydrated. So I teach a whole class on how to grow like shiitake and oyster mushrooms and wine caps and stuff like that, right in your own backyard in Connecticut. And maybe doing stuff like this. Now, what is this? This is pesto. So if I'm harvesting a whole bunch of herbs, pesto just means paste. So by the way, you can do this with get a whole big old thing of cilantro, blend it up, put it into an ice cube tray and process it, maybe add a little oil. So typically with these you coat the top with oil to stop the top from browning. um, Put it in the freezer, and then you've got little pesto cubes. Now if these are basil pesto, then toss them in sauces, toss them in dishes. Or if this is like a cilantro or a parsley, put them in your dishes. I had the idea of what is it, curry leaves. I always want to buy some, but then I was like, oh my God, I should buy some when I'm at the Indian market. And then I should pesto them and freeze them. And then I've got these curry leaves that I can use and stuff. All right, anyway. So what's in my pantry? That citric acid is still in my pantry. I'm using this to sprinkle on my fruits that might brown. Or yes, you could use lemon juice. But so as I'm doing like a batch of peaches, um, I'm cutting them and I'm immediately hitting them with this so they don't brown in between now and when I freeze them. Now, this is going to add some tartness to it. Sometimes I want to offset that tartness by adding a little sugar at the same time. So I'll toss them in sugar and citric acid. Okay. Veggies. I don't know why it took me forever to actually like do what I knew I should be doing, blanching. Like every veggie needs to be blanched. What is blanching? So I imagine most of you know what it is, but you're going to par cook the veggies and then immediately chill them before bagging them up or putting them in a container and freezing them. Okay, so what this does is it firms up the cell walls. And if you don't do this, like I did, I would freeze green beans from the garden. I'd chop them up, I'd wash them, and I'd put them in freezer bags. I'd put them in the freezer, and then I'd take zucchini. Oh man, we got all this zucchini and squash. Chop it up, freeze it, put it in the freezer bag, freeze it, and then I'd be throwing it out every time I open them up because they're all mushy, and that's because I didn't blanch them. And if you look at this, tables like this, these are linked in the handouts again, the full table, all the veggies and everything, and this version of it too. So when we look at the time scale on this, green beans, 3 minutes means I get up, I get a pot of water going, all right, and I get that to a boil. When it's boiling, I take all my green beans, pre-chopped or whole, however they are, put them in that hot water, in that boiling water, and I let them boil for 3 minutes. Okay. Timer starts as soon as I put them in the water. This is not like the other one where I'm like, oh, it stopped boiling. No, as soon as they're in the water, timer 3 minutes. Okay. Now, while that 3 minutes is going, I'm going to the sink. I'm setting up a colander so I can strain them immediately. And I'm setting up another bowl of ice water. So I'm getting ice from the freezer, putting it in, mixing it with some water so that I can strain them and immediately, when the timer goes off, I'm pulling the pot, I'm straining them as fast as I can without burning myself, taking them out and putting them in the ice water, mixing it, and then I'm straining them from the ice water so it's now cooled down and they've stopped the cooking in the cell walls. What you've done in that is that you've pushed out, you've the heating has expanded the cell walls, and then the quick cool has contracted them, and there's less liquid in the cell walls. There's less water in the cell walls to create ice crystals that cut and slice the cells open when they get frozen. Since there's less water in those cell walls, it there's less water ice damage when you freeze them, and then they preserve their texture. Oh my God, oh my God. Anyway, blanching. It's what you need to do to all veggies when you freeze them. Now, what I've also learned is that peaches, peaches and apples and pears, those also benefit from blanching as well. So again, here's what you're going to do is you're going to be like, I've got this veggie, learn about that veggie, look it up, and look it up, find out what to do, and process it. Same thing with fruit. You're going to look them up and become an expert in that thing. Now, why do I have this here? Because as you're freezing things, you can dry. Now, I don't think that everybody has figs, but this had all three words that I wanted to pre-teach to you. In a recipe, it may say to dry pack things. That literally means just taking the figs, putting them in, see, this says spread the figs on a baking sheet, freeze them, and then quickly pack the figs into freezer jars or plastic bags. That's a pro tip right there. When I've got all my peaches, and I'm like, so peaches are a favorite for me to freeze. If I also had like apples that I was freezing, and sometimes I freeze them all in a chunk that would be perfect for a pie filling. Sometimes I freeze things flat in a cookie sheet, quick in the freezer until the outside's frozen. Then when I pack them in the bag, the outsides of them are frozen and they don't freeze and stick together. That means that we can now scoop those out and put them in smoothies, scoop those out and put them in smaller things. We can open up the plastic bag from the freezer a month from now, scoop them out, use them, and they're not all stuck together. You don't have to thaw the whole thing. Okay, so dry pack. Sugar pack is literally coating them all in sugar. That kind of absorbs the moisture on the outside. But then syrup packing is another method that you'll see. Okay, but anyway. All right, freezing. So we had turkeys this year. And we had 6 turkeys and they lived on grass. And this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, we process them and we vacuum seal them. I parted them out, and this was an awesome thing to do. I don't know if we're gonna do it again, because it was a thing where the whole family's got to be on board if we do it again. Right now we're enjoying this because like last week we had some thighs on the grill, and this week we had a breast on the grill. So because I took each one and parted them, I butchered them down. We don't have to thaw out a whole turkey. Thing is that you could be doing the same thing. You go and you buy a whole chicken, and you buy the whole chicken. It's less per pound. You do the butchering yourself. You freeze you freeze. By the way, what you don't see here is the carcass too. After you take the wings and the legs off and the breasts off, and you freeze those individually, you then also have a carcass that you can make soup out of or broth. Okay, so anyway, part of this discussion, I'll get off the meat and I'll just focus on that one, is that you could also be buying food in bulk from your Costco, your BJ's, is Sam's Club even around? I haven't seen one in forever, but all right, good. I know Costco's are out there, and Walmart, you get a big old package of chicken or steak cuts or whatever. Now, how do I'm not saying to freeze them all at once. What you can do is freeze them individually, or here's my pro tip with this. Yes, you could pat them all dry. Here's the quick way of doing it. Get some saran wrap out. Unroll the saran wrap on the counter. Get a pair of scissors out. Put a chicken breast on one piece of saran wrap it, cut it, do the next one. Wrap it, cut. Now each one is individually wrapped, and you can freeze multiples of those in a bag and pull them out individually, and they won't stick together. This an efficient way of kind of maximizing that freezer space, not using as many bags, um, because you're kind of using that saran wrap, but also not having to thaw everything out. You can choose however many you need from that freezer section. Now, remember, we can't just freeze them in the saran wrap. We have to freeze them in either freezer bags or vacuum bags, something like that, where we're going to suck the air out or push as much air out as possible and get a nice tight seal. Okay. Yeah, don't buy the cheapos. Some other do's and these are some other do's and don'ts with freezing stuff and vacuum sealing stuff. All right. We already talked about that there's different types of freezer bags and different types of containers out there. Get the ones that are rated for freezing. All right. Not stuff like this. That's rated for freezing, but man, that costs $12 per thing. You're not buying that for freezer stuff. That's for your for your lunches to go to school or good, whatever it is. Here's again another pro tip. Buy these. Buy these for either your freezer in your kitchen or your freezer in the basement. If you got a chest freezer that you're leaning over, my God, do you know how much food we threw out? Every year we would clean out the chest freezer at my parents' house and throw away food that was at the bottom that we could never get to because we didn't have bins like this. Bins, an investment in this is not just an investment in organization. It's an investment so that stuff, you can easily get stuff out, pick it out, and not have to destroy and have stuff rub up against each other, tearing the bags open, and then getting freezer burn. So this reduces food waste and also allows you to access things so that you don't forget about them in the freezer. So measure your freezer out bit by bit, get the shelves aligned, and decide on bins that work for you. All right, we're doing well on time. Now, this is an hour and a half thing. In 10 minutes, it's like, yeah, we'll get there. Dehydrating it is pretty basic. All right, so I am thinking about dehydrating things like these leafy things. All right, so herbs. All right, I'm thinking of dehydrating yeah, chamomile and if I'm drying herbs, I'm probably not going to put them in the food dehydrator, right? Because that at even on a low heat setting, it's going to be too much heat for them. I'm taking herbs and I'm hanging them. I wrap rubber bands around them. And these are herbs from my garden. What do we got? We got like lemon verbena and some eucalyptus and some stevia. That's sweet leaf. That's that I could be doing this with basil, parsley, cilantro, whatever we got growing in the garden, sage. Those are all like things I love to grow and I love to dehydrate. They grow well in Connecticut. So I come over, I do a big old cut with scissors or shears, and then I immediately wrap them with rubber bands. Then I hang them in a cool, where's my picture? There. I hang them in a cool, dark place. Now, my basement is a cool, dark place that is not wet. If you have a wet basement, don't hang them down there because they're not going to dry. What you can't see in here is they're hanging in my basement and I have a dehumidifier going. That's keeping my basement dry. And we don't have a water issue. And I'm sorry, back up. And I also have a fan that's on the floor blowing air around that area. And these will dehydrate there. Now, why does it need to be like a cool, dark place? It's because we want to draw moisture out of them with the airflow, but we don't want sunlight to damage them and we don't want temperature to damage them, pulling volatile oils out of them. That's going to change the flavor profiles of stuff. We want to dehydrate this low, slow, and cool with lots of airflow. Can you do this in your garage? No, not unless your garage is air conditioned and you're not opening that garage door. We're in Connecticut and you can't dehydrate stuff that, in a garage or a shed because we have too much humid air outside. If your house is not air conditioned, it's going to be hard to also dehydrate these like this. You kind of need a climate controlled environment to get a good dehydration of herbs in this way. Okay, so again, or if we had a dry spell. So right now I mean not humid air. So if we have a humid forecast, you definitely can't do it in a garage. But if we got a week and it's like we're gonna have low humidity, it's like 50, 60%. You could do it. You could do it in your garage with a fan setup. All right. Now, grapes. Once I tried to take grapes and I tried to turn them into raisins, it didn't work because we're in Connecticut. No matter how many fans and how much sun exposure I had here, you can't make raisins in Connecticut because of our humidity. I built one of these, and I built one of these before we had cell phones and we took pictures of it. So I had to find a picture of somebody else from Mother Earth News. building this. And this is a solar dehydrator. Works great in not humid environments. You can't use these in Connecticut because we have humid air. This is designed to heat the air up. The sun hits this on the black thing, heats the air up, and the air travels up to trays that dehydrate in this drying chamber. This works great out in what, Arizona, places where you don't have humid air. In Connecticut, it's not going to work. Mine, when I built it, do you know what it did? It just created mold in the whole thing. The whole thing heated up with warm air and infused warm air and everything, and it grew as a big mold chamber. So it's not going to work. So dehydrators are where it's at for a lot of stuff. Now, this one does have herbs in it. If I am going to do herbs, I'm not going to put them on the bottom trays at all. I'm going to put them only on the top trays. I'm going to turn the temperature all the way down and then dry them away from the heat source. If so, that's if you have to do herbs in there and you can't hang dry them. I'm using mushrooms and I'm drying mushrooms. These are shiitakes that I grew. And then again, I dry them and then I put them in freezer bags and I freeze them. Why do I do that? Because it's kind of like a double protection. I took all the moisture out of them. And if I put them in here and put them in the freezer, that's another barrier for moisture to not get in here. A lot of stuff that I dehydrate, like fruits and stuff like that, I end up putting in the freezer anyway. So price tags for dehydrators, 40, 50 bucks. That's what you're going to expect to pay unless you go on eBay and you find one used. All right. This is a little bit of what not to do with a dehydrator. You are never going to mix types of things. It will all be strawberries or all be apple slices from top to bottom, but not mixing them. Mixed types of things dehydrate at different times, and it's just not going to work. The flavors also mix. So here's an example. They got kiwi in here with cucumbers. Those flavors are going to mix. This is a picture that they used and they market to get your brain going of like, oh, I could dehydrate kiwis. And it's to get you to buy the product. This is a good example of proper spacing of this. But again, you probably would only have strawberries. You don't want them touching. This is improper spacing. If you stack your fruits or veggies so they're touching each other like this, moisture won't pull away enough, and you'll have the problem of creating a mold chamber. I have done this before. I have jam-packed my dehydrator, kicked up the temperature, turned it on, gone to bed, and in the morning, the whole thing's filled with mold because it couldn't get the moisture out. All right. So when in doubt, do it in batches. And if you're holding on to food, put it in the fridge while you're waiting to do another batch. Again, you're not going to mix stuff like this. All right. So some of the bigger ones, I don't have one of these yet. I hope to get one that is bigger one day. Spend that $150. The big commercial ones are the ones for like, like what is it, like a restaurant or a kitchen or something like that. They're going to have a big heating element from the back instead of from the base, and it's going to be pushing it consistently over the trays. So that's, if you really, again, you're going to take this class and you're going to be like, yeah, I really do want to try blah blah blah. I mean, did you know that you could just take cucumbers, slice them, mix them with a little bit of vinegar and some dill and stuff like that and salt, put them in the dehydrator, and you got little dill pickle chips that aren't truly pickled, but they got that flavor. That's a really good one. Peaches, man. Peaches. Look at my friend citric acid. All right, I'm slicing these up. I'm trying to be consistent with the slices. I'll be honest, these are a little on the thick side, but I'm and I'm tossing them in. I'm tossing citric acid over this batch before I put them in the dehydrator so they don't turn brown. And when they dehydrate, they look like this instead of brown chips. They would all be completely brown if I didn't put citric acid on it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it made me buy this one year. I was like, yeah, I'll try it. It's in the recipes. I should do it. And once I started using it, I was like, oh my God, it's a game changer. I don't have brown dehydrated stuff anymore. Okay, so if you are to dehydrate herbs, and you hang them, part of processing them would be to get them off the stems. So this is what stevia looks like. You can go back and see I should put this picture side by side, but this is what it looks like when it's fully dried out. The stems are snap and they're brittle. All right, that's when you know. And each leaf, if you pick it up, it like crumbles into and starts to powderize. Okay, so as you take them off the stems, You need something to collect them. So I do it over a tote, and then I take those and I bag them up. And this is not done. These herbs are now raw, and I need to go through and pick out the gray leaves. So what I do is I spread this out on newsprint on the kitchen counter, and I watch a show, I listen to a podcast, as you know, and so this is now a future project, is to sift through this. What I can do once I've taken out all the stems is I can take this, put it in the food processor, and powder this. And then I've got powdered stevia. This right here is coriander. And I don't know if you know, if you grow cilantro and you eating it, blah, blah, blah. If you let that cilantro grow, it grows 3 feet tall and it has little white flowers at the top. You can eat the flowers, but if you let the flowers stay, they turn into coriander. They turn little seed pods. And then you take you cut the whole plant, hang it upside down, let the whole thing dry off, and then pull the seeds off. My God, look at how many plants that must have come from. But now I've got fresh coriander, but there's sticks and stems that I have to pull out of that. This is right towards the end. My God, yeah, this is where if we had time, I'd talk to you about smoking and oh boy, Brad bonus. This is at the end. This is linked at the end. If you like pickling and everything, my God, check out this channel on Bon Appetit. It's where we learned a lot of recipes on how to make sauerkraut and pickles and everything. Man, I feel like I should watch one tonight. They're hilarious. But that's it. That's about it for this. I'm gonna escape out of here. We're gonna stop the share. Maybe it's time to, I don't know if we're gonna kill the recording and do questions or whatever, but thanks for hanging out.